أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
I hope the session yesterday was a good learning experience. So now previously or yesterday we discussed the measurement model analysis, whereby the sole objective was to assess the quality criteria of the constructs used in this study. Now these are the constructs used in this study. Now once you have assessed the quality criteria of the constructs, that is, you have assessed the factor loadings, the reliability, the validity. One thing that I should have discussed yesterday, but again, we can do it now. I did discuss the common method bias using Smart PLS. So according to Ned Koch, I'll share the reference of the paper as well. So we can use VIF values to assess the common method bias. Now, in order to do so, what you have to do is you have to click this link here on the left, collinearity statistics VIF. Now you will see a lot of VIF values here, and you will see three options here. Now in this case, in order to assess your common method bias, you should see this inner model. Better to click the inner model list. Now if we see all these values are less than 3. Now according to Ned Koch, if the VIF values are less than 3, then you do not have any issue of common method bias. So this shows that based on the VIF values from this model, there is no serious issue of common method bias because all values are less than 3. So this is how you can use common method bias or assess common method bias in Smart PLS. Now that you have assessed the measurement model, the next step in SCM after measurement model assessment is your structural model assessment. And the objective of structural model assessment is to assess how these variables are interrelated. So how vision is related to organizational commitment, how development is related to, let's say, collaborative culture or organizational commitment, how rewards is related to both of them. So the objective of structural model is to substantiate your proposed hypothesis. Now in this case, it's a very complex model. So I'm just going to change this model into a simpler model for now, and later we are going to do a complex model, just as we did yesterday. So I'm going to name it structural model after deletion, or let's say, let me call it a simple structural model. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all the other variables just to have a more simple model that is easy to understand. So let's say in this case, now what I have is I have 3 predictors and 1 dependent variable. My predictors are rewards, development, and vision. And I'm interested in assessing how they influence the organizational performance. Now, to run your structural model and assess whether or not these predictors have a significant impact on this outcome, we are going to calculate and do bootstrapping. Now, if you click bootstrapping, you are presented with a number of options. Now, before we go on in detail and discuss what options we select. Now, bootstrapping is a technique that is used for non-parametric analysis. So when your data is not normal, we go for the bootstrapping technique. And what it does is it based on your sample, it extrapolates or creates subsamples. So from that same data, you create your subsamples through random number generation. And those subsamples, normally previously it was recommended to have 5,000, and now in the recent book they have recommended it to be 10,000. Now parallel processing to make the processing a bit faster. Amount of results, now there are 2 amount of results. Now if you go for detailed results whereby you are interested in the model fit, you are interested in the F square, you have to use complete or slower option. For now we are just going to use the faster option. And confidence interval, there are three different options. Bias corrected and accelerated bootstrap is the recommended option because it gives you more stable solution. Now test type, there are two test types. One is one-tailed, the other is two-tailed. Now we use one-tailed if we are or if we have proposed that a certain relationship or those relationships in the model are positive or negative. So in this case, I know that vision, development, and rewards can have a positive impact on organizational performance. So my proposition is that they have a positive impact. So I will use one-tailed. If, let's say, I didn't know the proper direction of my relationship, let's say stress can improve the performance of an employee or stress can reduce the performance of an employee. So you are not sure which direction it may take. Now, in that case, I will use two-tailed. So in this case, I'm going to use one-tailed. Significance level, as we all know, is the criteria based on which we either reject or fail to reject our hypothesis. And in social sciences research, it is 0.05. Finally, the random number generator, because your bootstrapping is based on random number generation. Now, it is based on random seed or fixed seed. Now, with fixed seed, what happens is that if you keep running it again and again, the results won't change. With random seed, what happens is that if you keep running it again and again, the results may change very slightly. Now, in this case, or normally we will use fixed seed. Again, make sure that path is selected and nothing else. Just press start calculation. Now, when you run the model, again, here you will see that all of this is 0. This now is the significance of loading. So now through bootstrapping, what SmartPLS does is it provides you the significance of each of those loadings. In structural model, what we normally do is we hide these indicators because we are not interested in the relationship of this variable or this latent construct with these items. We are interested in the relationship between the latent variables. That is how vision can influence organizational performance, how development can influence organizational performance, or how rewards can influence organizational performance. So normally what happens is we hide these indicators. Or you can select them all, Control A, but for that you have to go back. For now, let me hide it like this. Now in this case, what is this? This is again your p-value. And let's say we can have different, let's say we can have path coefficient and p-values. So now this is the path coefficient and these in the parentheses, you've got p-values. So you can zoom in as well if you want. So in this case, the weight of impact of vision on organizational performance is 0.229. That is your beta coefficient. And is this beta significant? Yes, this beta is significant because the p-value is less than 0.05. So based on our hypotheses, we can say there is a significant impact of vision on organizational performance. Similarly, for the next one, yes, it is significant. And this shows that there is a significant impact of development on organizational performance. As for the last one, the beta value is very low. The weight of impact of rewards on organizational performance is very low. It is even less than 0.1. So in this case, the p-value is 0.335. So there is no significant impact of rewards on organizational performance. Now, what is this 0.589? As we discussed Yesterday, this is your R square. So this shows that how much variance in the dependent variable is being accounted by an independent or set of independent variables. So in this case, the R square is 58.9 or 0.589. If converted into percentage is 58.9. Now 58.9% change in organizational performance is being accounted by vision, development, and rewards. Now, where are these results in the form of a table? So if you go to final results and click path coefficients, you will find your final results. These are the beta values, weight of impact that we earlier saw. It was on the arrows. Now, this is the sample mean. Again, this is the weight of impact based on bootstrapping. And this is the weight of impact for your original sample. Now, this is your standard deviation. We normally report these. This is your standard deviation or standard error. And this is your t statistic. Now, you get your t statistics if you divide this number by this. Now, since I ran one-tailed test, so how do I assess this t statistic? Now, it is for the significance of relationship as well. And now previously in Smart PLS2, we did not have probability value. We only had t statistics. So t statistics, if you see this here, 2.396. Now this is greater than 1.645. Why 1.645? Because you used one-tailed test. If you would have used two-tailed test, then the significance or the t statistics for t statistics to be significant, you would have compared it to 1.96. In this case, you ran one-tailed test. So this value is compared to 1.645, all these values. So if these values are greater than 1.645, this means that your path here is significant. Is that the case? Yes, this is the case. Yes, this is the case. But look at this. This t statistic is less than 1.645. So, and your p-value is greater than 0.05. Hence, we conclude that rewards do not have a significant impact on organizational performance in the context of this particular study. So this here, if you see, is the impact of IV on DV, IV, DV, IV, DV. So you've got three predictor, one outcome, and the results are, these are the results for your hypothesis, because you simply have three hypotheses in this case. Now that you are done with this, and this was a simple model with just IVs and that's it, 1 DV. There are no other variables in the study. But obviously, we do not have models like this all the time. Mostly we have complex models, whereby we've got mediators, moderators, or other variables as well. Control variables for that matter. Now, in order to assess, analyze such a complex model that has other type of variables as well, just like, let's say, mediators or moderators, how do we analyze such a model where we have other type of variables like mediators or moderators? Now, before we go into the detail of how to analyze such a model, we have to understand the concept of mediation. So what is a mediator? A mediator is a third variable that intervenes in the relationship between two variables. And by intervening, I mean that third variable, there is no annotation option anyway. So this means that third variable, which may lie here, so that third variable, let's say it lies here. Now, this third variable is influenced by vision and it influences OP. This is what makes a mediator or intervening variable. So a mediator is a third variable in the relationship that is influenced by IV, and then it influences the DV to explain the mechanism of impact through which vision influences OP, or development can influence OP, or rewards can influence OP, or in your case, any of your IVs impacting the DV. So for inclusion of a third variable as a mediator in your study, you have to find theoretical support of whether that particular variable can be influenced by the independent variable, and later it can influence the dependent variable. Now, again, that is the theoretical part. So a number of times scholars are confused as to what makes a mediator. So the ultimate objective of a mediator is to explain the mechanism through which an IV influences the DV. Let me give you a quick example. So for instance, we have all heard that stress can cause or can weaken the performance of an organization. But this relationship is not as simple as it looks. There is a whole mechanism behind it. Mediation analysis can help us explain that mechanism, that whether the proposed mechanism can stand or not, or that whether that proposed mechanism is actually right or not, or is actually accepted or not. Now, in this case, let's say we've got a variable stress, and that influences the organizational performance. So what could be the mechanism behind it that we can test? So normally what happens is, when you have stress, it leads to lack of communication. So if I am feeling, or if I am under stress, I would rather not communicate with people. With this lack of communication, what it does is it decreases or reduces or weakens the coordination that I have within my department. With this lack of coordination, the internal service quality suffers. The type of service that we give each other within the department. And when the internal service quality suffers, the external service quality suffers as well. When the external service quality suffers, the reputation, the image of the organization suffers. And when that image or the reputation suffers, it might affect the sales of the organization, and that obviously can influence the organizational performance. Now, there could be other different mediators in the relationship as well. So it's not an exhaustive list. This is what makes mediation more interesting as well, so that you can include new mediators into the model, into the relationship, and check those relationships. And that is actually your contribution, because you are proposing now a new mechanism of impact. So this is how mediators work. And now this is my proposed series of mediators. This is a series. You can have parallel mediators as well, where they are on top of each other. So you can have multiple mechanisms that you are assessing as to how IV can influence the DV. So how do I check for such mechanism, whether my proposed mechanism stands or not, whether my proposed mechanism in terms of how I collected the data makes sense or not? So let's do a simple mediation model first. Let's say I delete this one as well. Let's say I delete this one as well. And let's do a very simple mediation model. And in this case, my mediator has select all, Alt X. So you can remove all the indicators all at once. Alt plus X. Now connect it. Vision to collaborative culture to organizational performance. Now, if you look here, this is your mediator. And this mediator is being influenced by independent variable and is then influencing another variable, that is your dependent variable, that is your organizational performance. Now, how do I check it? Now, what mediation does is it will help me explain whether the impact of vision on organizational performance is passing through collaborative culture or not. Now, if it is passing through collaborative culture based on my results, then I can say there is mediation. And mediation means that the impact of vision on organizational performance is not direct, rather passing through this path. It is actually passing through the indirect effect. This third variable here. This shows that there is an indirect effect of vision on organizational performance. Now, how do I check for mediation? So we go to calculate, bootstrapping, start. Now, if you look here, these individual relationships, this is significant, this is significant as well, and this is significant as well. So all individual parts are significant. So I can say there is a significant impact of vision on collaborative culture, there is a significant impact of collaborative culture on organizational performance, and there is a significant impact of vision on organizational performance. But this model on its own does not tell me whether or not collaborative culture mediates the relationship between vision and organizational performance. So for that, I have to come here to final results section, and I've got multiple results here. I've got path coefficients. Again, if you look at path coefficient, this is the direct or these are the direct relationship between variables. So each of those individual relationship, you have them here with their p-values. Total indirect effect, obviously it's the effect of vision on organizational performance with a mediator in it. Now, in this case, for now, leave the total indirect effect. I am interested in specific indirect effect, but you can say that both are the same, isn't it? Look at this, 0.215, 220, 0.057. And look at this, the same thing. Because you only have one mediator in the model. If you would have had 2-3 mediators, then your total indirect effects will be the sum of all the direct and indirect effects. In this case, the specific indirect effect is more suited if you have got more than one mediator. So for now, let's look at specific indirect effect. Now, specific indirect effect is vision affects collaborative culture and collaborative culture affects organizational performance. So this is your specific indirect effects where the impact of vision on organizational performance is passing through collaborative culture. This is what I proposed actually. Now, is my proposition correct? Is that the case? Yes, it is the case. Why am I saying it is the case? Because the impact or the causal chain of relationship that assessed the impact of vision, collaborative culture, and organizational performance is significant. Since the p-value is less than 0.05. Now I know that the impact of vision on organizational performance is actually passing through a mediator, and that mediator in this case is your collaborative culture. All right. So let me do some notes here for you. So mediator is a third variable that helps in explaining the mechanism through which IV impacts the DV. Now, specific indirect effect explains if the causal chain of relationship or the impact of IV on DV is passing through the mediator. Now, is this correct in this case? If we come here, yes, this is correct. Why? Because the p-value is less than 0.05. But then there is one thing. What type of mediation? Is it full or partial? So how would I know it's full mediation? So let's first define it. Full mediation. And the impact of IV on DV passes completely through the mediator. How would I know that if it is passing completely through the mediator? That's very easy. This is true when the direct effect is insignificant and the indirect effect is significant. So if you come here and look at the graphical output. Now, if this effect, this is direct effect, this effect of IV on DV is called a direct effect when the mediator is also present in the model. So the direct effect of IV on DV in presence of the mediator, if it is insignificant, then the whole impact of vision on organizational performance is actually passing through the mediator. And when that happens, you've got full mediation. So what about partial mediation? So some of the effect is passing through the mediator, some of effect is passing through the direct relationship. This is partial mediation. So how would I know if it's partial? This is true when the direct effect and the indirect effect both are significant. How would I check whether in this case I've got partial or full mediation? So look at this, direct effect is significant. So some of the effect of vision on organizational performance is direct. So vision is directly influencing your organizational performance. Now, some of the effect is passing through the mediator, which is collaborative culture. So in this case, both direct and indirect effects are significant. Now, when this is the case, this is called partial mediation. I hope this makes sense. Now, so you have one more thing here, total effects here. Now, this total effect from IV to DV, that is from vision to organizational performance, is 0.643. And if you sum this 0.215 and this 0.408, you will have 0.623. So your total effect here is the sum of your direct effect and indirect effect. So this is your direct effect. So if you sum this, and you will have to sum the, okay, from where did you get or how did you calculate the indirect effect? So if you multiply this beta coefficient here, this one here 0.716 with this here 0.300, you will have your indirect effect, this one 0.215. So total effect is the sum of direct and indirect effect. All right. Now moving on to a more complex mediation model. So now I've got two mediators and I've got two IVs. So this is slightly complex model for mediation. Now save it and let's run it. Calculate, bootstrapping, start. Okay. Now in this case, I've got two mediators here. I've got two IVs here and I've got one DV here. And these two mediators, I propose that they mediate the relationship between vision, development, and organizational performance. So the first step, let's look at the path coefficient, which shows the direct effects, that is the effect of each or the relationship between each of those constructs that I have in the model. If I look here, CC to OP is insignificant while the rest of them are significant because the p-value is less than 0.05. This shows that all these proposed relationships in my model are significant except for one. Now I'm interested in, let's say, specific indirect effects. So all possible mediation results will be here. Now sometimes students do send me images and all those, and they say, well, we've got so many mediation results and specific indirect effects. What should we do? Well, you only discuss those that are relevant to your study. Smart PLS, or for that matter, any other software that you use, does not know which ones you are interested in. So it will give you all possible mediations results. And we will look at some other way around this as well. So what you need to do is you need to copy or take out the relationships that are suited for your study. Now in this case, if I go to the graphical output, I've got these two IVs and these two as mediators with this TV. So I've got one mediation path here, the other mediation path here too, and then four mediation path. Am I getting four mediation relationships? Yes, I'm getting four mediation relationships. And this is what I expected. Now, if you look here, this is insignificant. So there is no mediation. So CC does not mediate the relationship between development and organizational performance. This means that the impact of development on organizational performance is not passing through CC. But is it passing directly? Let's see. So directly, I mean that the relationship between development and OP should be significant. Is it? Development and OP is significant. So CC as a mediator does not mediate the relationship between development and OP. Rather, based on what data we have, it shows that there is a direct relationship rather than an indirect one. Now, again, this one here, vision to OP, it does not mediate. So vision to OP, is it significant? Yes, it is significant. So again, this is a direct effect based on the study. These two are significant, this one and this one. So this shows that OC does mediate the relationship between vision and OP and development and OP. This means that the impact of vision on OP and development on OP, which is organizational performance, is actually passing through your mediators, that is OC, or rather the mediator OC. So in this study, OC has been found to significantly mediate the relationship between vision and organizational performance and development and organizational performance, whereas collaborative culture does not mediate the proposed relationships. So one or two of my hypotheses are insignificant, whereas two of those are significant. Now, how do you present these results? Now that you've got mediation or you've got direct relationships as well. Now, in this model, you can have multiple hypotheses. All right. So let me give you a brief example as to how do you present these results. So let's say I'm writing my data analysis and results section. All right. So I'm writing my data analysis and results section. The first thing that I will do is I will write the measurement model. In the measurement model, I will present the factor loadings. Then I will present the reliability, that is cron batch alpha. and composite reliability. Then I will present the validity, that is my construct validity, and that includes the convergent validity and discriminant validity. Now that this is done, the next step is your structural model. And in the structural model, the first step is, let's say you propose or test your direct hypothesis results. So you present your direct hypothesis results. Then you present your mediation analysis results. And or you can present your moderation first and then you can present your mediation. It's up to you. If you do not have moderator, no worries. You can have just direct relationship and then mediators. Now, what you need to do is, in this case, so path coefficients, this will show me the direct relationships. So I can copy it here, paste it here. I do not need the sample mean. I'm just going to report the original mean. Then select these numbers, right click, format cells, number, go to 3. And now what you can do is, let's say these are these are your proposed relationships. Now let's say you call it h1, you call this one h2, you call this one h3, this one h4, h5, h6, h7, h8. Now these are your hypotheses, and instead of original samples, write path coefficient. Now no need to write this O by standard deviation and this one as well. Now what you need to do is, let's say you can copy it from here into your Word document under direct relationships. Select all borders. I prefer tables to have 10 font size. Now simply here you can report your hypothesis under direct hypothesis results section or direct hypothesis, or you can call it hypothesis testing. Howsoever it suits you, it's up to you. Now, how do I write it? Let me write one for you. H1. So H1 revealed a significant impact of so what's the beta value? 0.201. The t statistic is 2.562. Hence H1 was supported. That's it. So this is how you present your hypothesis. So I've done H1, you can similarly do H2, H3, H4. Now, obviously, do not repeat the same words again and again, like hypothesis results. So you can say that, okay, the study found, the study showed, the results revealed, something like that. All right. So just keep changing your terminology a bit, but more or less, it is going to be reported like this. What about mediation analysis? How do you report mediation analysis? Now, there are a few things that one should report in mediation analysis. Now, step 1, mention the mediation performed. So what kind of mediation did you perform? Like, What were the variables in the mediation? What mediation analysis was performed? Step 2, mention the specific indirect effect. So mention the mediation performed, mention the indirect effect, whether it was significant or not. Step 3, mention the direct effect. Step 4, based on the direct and indirect effect, identify type of mediation. So based on the indirect and direct effect, identify the type of mediation. Now, these are the 4 steps that one should use to report your mediation analysis. All right. Now, how do you form the table? Let me show you. So here is the format of the table that I normally use. So first of all, total effect, then direct effect, then specific indirect effect, and in the specific indirect effect, what is your hypothesis? So in this case, my hypothesis last was H8, so let's call it H9. And okay, here you can mention your beta value, your t statistics, your upper level confidence interval, your lower level confidence interval. You can mention your p value, and then you can mention your, let's say, results as well. Now let me format the table slightly so that we can do one here. Oops. Okay. Finally. Okay, so what is your total effect? You can mention the beta value and then the p value. You can mention the direct effect beta value and p value. And so the hypothesis that I'm planning to test, the mediation is, let's say, specific indirect effect. Let's say this is the first one. So let me copy it to Excel. Let's do one that is significant. So let's do this one. Copy. Let's paste it. So it's from vision affecting OC and OC affecting organizational performance. So what is the total effect? In this case, the total effect is the effect of vision on organizational performance through the mediators. So if you go here and you look at the total effects, so you've got multiple total effects. Now in this case, I'm interested in the total effect here. Vision to organizational performance. It's 0.252 and the p-value is 0.000. And p-value is 0.000. What is the direct effect? So the direct effect is in path coefficients. So impact of vision on organizational performance, 0.201, 0.201, 0.005. And what is the indirect effect here for this particular hypothesis? 0.065, Vision OCOP, Vision OCOP 0.065, 0.065, and the t value is 2.143, 0.016, 2.143, 0.016. Now, where is this upper level confidence interval and lower level confidence interval? Just one thing, I'm just looking at one thing here. Just hold on. Now, confidence interval, bias corrected. And if you look here, it is vision to OP, vision OCOP, vision OCOP, and here it is. These two values, 0.025, 0.127. Now see, there is no zero in between. Now, how to interpret it? If there is a zero in between, this means that it is not significantly different from zero. The path is not significantly different from zero. So this means that there is no mediation. But this is a different way to assess mediation. Since you are getting p-values and you are getting specific indirect effects, then you can have simply look at those values and then report it. 0.025, 0.127, 0.25, 0.127. Now, this is how you can report it. Even if you do not report the total effect, you do not need to. So normally in the papers, you'll see that it is just the direct effect and indirect effect. So if we try to save some space, you can have like this as well. And in this case, since this is significant and this is significant, so what we will have is partial mediation. Now, if this would have been insignificant and only this was significant, then this was full mediation. So this is how you can report your mediation analysis. So first mention the mediation performed. So you can say that H9 seeks to assess the mediating role of organizational commitment in the relationship between vision and organizational performance. Now mention the indirect effect. Step 2. The results revealed a significant indirect. Yes, please. You can type your query here. The results revealed a significant indirect effect of vision on OP through OC. Now put in your beta value, T value, and your P value here. Now, once you are done with this, the next step, mention the direct effect. The path analysis showed that in presence of the mediator, step 1, can you be a bit more precise? What's step 1? Now, step 1 here is the mediation performed. So in this case, the mediator is this OC. So H1, or rather step 1 is my H9 actually. Why? Because I've already assessed the 8 hypotheses previously. So H9 seeks to assess the mediating role of which variable? OC in the relationship of these two variables. That's my mediation that I want to assess, vision to OP. Now, once this is how you write your step 1. I hope this is clear now. The path analysis showed that in presence of the mediator, the impact of, now this is the direct impact. So the direct impact is between IV and DV was found significant. Now you do not need to explain it here again because this relationship you have already explained it here. Where is vision to OP? Here it is. So here you just need to simply mention that it was significant, and you can mention that p-value was less than 0.05. And finally, the last thing that you write, since the direct and specific indirect effects were found significant, rather it's one single one, was found significant, this shows that OC partially mediates the relationship between vision and OP. Now, if you remove these step headings here, you can simply convert it into a form of paragraph. And it will have the necessary structure. You don't have to worry about doing anything else. That's it. You just simply remove these steps, the one in bold, and create one paragraph from this whole. So this is how you can do your mediation analysis if you've got multiple mediators, and you can report your mediation results like this. And this is how you report your direct analysis or direct hypothesis results. So again, one tip here, whenever you are devising a model, make sure, if you want to get published, one tip is to try to have as many new mediators as possible, like let's say at least 2 to 3 in a study. And what happens with this is that this gives you one more strong gap, that you're trying to explain not only the individual relationship, but you are also trying to explain the mechanism through which an IV influences a DV. So what you are explaining is you are now explaining the whole mechanism through which the variables influence each other. All right. Now, any question up till now? No questions?
So, just can you spend 1 minute and clarify what is total effect and direct effect?
Yes. Now, the total effect is the sum of direct and indirect effect. All right. So if I sum all the effects that are there, for example, the effects like from IV to MV, MV to DV, and the indirect effects as well, this will give me the total effect. The direct effect, in this case, the precise term is given to the effect of vision on OP in presence of the mediator. So where is the impact of vision on OP? Here is this. This line here is the direct effect. This line here is the direct effect, because this effect is in presence of the mediator in the model. All right.
Yes,
so this is how.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, if the new mediators are not tested or done in the previous study, how can we propose the new mediators? Yes. Now, let's us understand again the essence of mediator. A mediator is one that is influenced by another variable, and then it influences another variable, in simple terms. So collaborative culture is a mediator here that is influencing DV and is being influenced by IV. Theoretically, you will have to first understand what for example, you try to propose mediators. You've got 20, 30 possible list of variables that can serve as a mediator. Now, first you have to understand their definition, their concept. Now, once you understand their definition, their concept, you have to see whether theoretically they can influence the DV, and theoretically can they be influenced by the IV. Now, this means that they can serve as a mediator. Now you have to propose your questionnaire on it and collect data. So this is how you can propose new mediators, by understanding the whole concept behind the mediator, as to what the mediator means and whether it can be possible mediator theoretically. And by theoretically, I mean if it can influence another variable and it can be influenced by some other variable. I hope this clears the question. Okay. Now that this, yes, please.
So, for example, I have 6 independent variables. And I have some 3 to 4 mediators and 1 dependent variable I'm testing the model. Now the model becomes too complex. If I go with all 6 independent variables and the 4 mediators with the dependent variable. Now, while I'm reporting it, is it good I go with one complex model, or I'll take one independent variable with all the moderators to dependent variable? Like that, I report them separately in a different models like that. Just for reporting.
No. Yes, no. The essence of SCM is complex analysis. So if you've got one study and that whole study that you are doing has got that complex model, just for the sake of analysis, you cannot separate the models. They will have to be one model. That's the whole essence of SCM. All right. Okay. Now that we have done the significance testing, that is direct hypothesis results, and we have done the mediation, the next step or next part of the analysis is moderation analysis. So just as we can have IVs, we can have DVs, we can have mediators, we can have moderators in a study as well. Now, a moderator or a moderating variable is one that moderates, molds, changes, strengthens, weakens, or altogether change a relationship. So a moderator is a third variable whose sole task is to moderate, change a relationship. Now that change could mean that it can strengthen a relationship. That change can mean it can weaken a relationship. That change can mean it can altogether change the relationship. So a moderator is not pointing towards variables in the study. A moderator is pointing towards relationships in a study. Now let's do a simple model for moderation and then we'll go for a complex model. Let's say I've got this model here where I've got two variables. One is collaborative culture, the other is organizational performance. Now, collaborative culture affects organizational performance. However, in my study, I've got another variable that I think can moderate this relationship. And by moderation here, I mean that a third variable can either strengthen or weaken this relationship. Now, in my case, my third variable is, okay, let's try one. And if it is insignificant, we'll try another one. That third variable is role conflict. So what happens what I'm proposing to say is that the impact of collaborative culture on organizational performance is moderated by role conflict. Now, how do I propose the hypothesis here? Let's say role conflict moderates the relationship between collaborative culture and organizational performance, such that now it's not enough to write just this here, that okay, role conflict moderates the relationship between collaborative culture and organizational performance. You have to write how it moderates. So a number of times we see like this, but that is not a good way to represent or present your moderation hypothesis. So such that higher role conflict weakens the positive relationship between collaborative culture and organizational performance. This is how you write the moderation hypothesis. So what I'm trying to assess here is whether or not a role conflict moderates the relationship between collaborative culture and organizational performance. And I'm interested in finding whether this moderation or role conflict weakens the positive relationship or not. Now, in this case, how do I check it? So what I'll do is I'll come over here and I will connect this role conflict to this arrow here, because you see it turns green. So what I'm trying to do here is finding out whether role conflict moderates the relationship between CC and OP, and it is moderating the relationship. So role conflict is affecting a relationship. It is not affecting CC, it is not affecting OP, it is affecting a relationship. So you drag it from RC and drop it onto this particular line or arrow. And if you see, now your moderation is created, a moderating effect is created. Now, once your moderating effect is created, what we are going to do is we are going to go to, let's save it, calculate, bootstrapping, 10,000, all good. And let's start. Now, if you look here at the path coefficients, well, in our case, no, it does not moderate the relationship. So role conflict is not moderating the relationship. We'll understand this later, but for now, let's understand this. So the impact of collaborative culture on organizational performance is not moderated by role conflict. Why? Because look at the beta value, look at the p-value. P-value is way over 0.05. Now let's see if there is another variable that could moderate. Let's remove this one. Okay. Now if you look here at path coefficients, it is moderating because the p-value is less than 0.05. And look at this. It is weakening. Look at this. There is a negative sign here. See, there is a negative sign. So this means the moderator weakens the relationship between CC and OP. And when we are testing moderation, you will always see this interaction effect. So moderation is actually tested through the interaction of these two variables, and it affects the dependent variable. But this is how it is presented in the form of a diagram. In the results section, you will always see like this, the interaction of independent variable and the moderator and how it affects the DV. If that is significant, then there is moderation. Now, in this case, the results reveal that role ambiguity moderates the relationship. Which relationship? CC and OP. And this moderation, in this case, is actually negative. This means that role ambiguity weakens this relationship. So what about this relationship? Is this a positive relationship or this is a negative relationship? In this case, it is a positive relationship. So role ambiguity weakens the positive relationship between CC and OP. So this means when you have higher role ambiguity, you will have a weaker relationship between collaborative culture and organizational performance. Now that you have found that your role ambiguity weakens this relationship, which relationship? This relationship. Why it weakens? Because you've got a negative sign here with the moderator or the moderating effect. So the positive relationship between collaborative culture and organizational performance will see or will be downward or will show a downward trend if you have got a higher role ambiguity. Now this relationship is significant. So what's the next step? The next step when your moderation is significant, is to go for slope analysis. So slope analysis in this case, we can do it two ways. One, we've got a slope in Smart PLS, and the other, we've got a slope that is through Excel sheet. Now, the one that I like is presented or is prepared by James Gaskin, and it is available online on his website as well, StatWiki. And we'll use both of them in order to better understand. So where is the slope for this in Smart PLS? So let's go to calculate PLS algorithm. Now to get the slope, you have to run the analysis again, the same model, and go to PLS SCM algorithm. All right, click, all done, click start. And on the left side, you will have slope analysis. All right, on the left side, you have slope analysis. Now here, if you see these lines, the first thing that you should ask yourself is, which line is steeper? So which line is much steeper in comparison to the other lines? Now, as I see it, I see that the red line is much steeper in comparison to the other lines. They are more straighter in comparison to the other two lines. Now, if I look at the red line here, this red line is for low role ambiguity. So you've got a moderation graph or a slope at different levels of the moderator. And in this case, your moderator is role ambiguity. So these three lines, the red one is for low role ambiguity. So what happens to the relationship between CC and OP when you've got low role ambiguity? What happens to CC and OP when you've got mean level of role ambiguity? What happens to CC and OP when you've got high level of role ambiguity? So if you've got low role ambiguity and you increase collaborative culture, there is a sharper increase in organizational performance. But if you see here at higher role ambiguity, although you are increasing collaborative culture, it is not leading to a similar change in your organizational performance. So in line with this chart, if you look at your path coefficients that we did earlier, you have to interpret both of them together. But the most important part, whenever you are trying to understand the slope analysis, is to look at the steepness of the gradient. Which line is steeper in comparison to the other one? Now, let me show you the James Gaskin part and then I'll come back to it again. Just give me 1 second. Let me open that file. Okay, here is the stats tool package. And let me get the slope on this one as well. So what I'm required to do is I'm going to mention my independent variable, which is collaborative culture. My mediator is role ambiguity. My dependent variable is organizational performance. So I've named or labeled all my variables. Now, what is this independent variable? So here, independent variable would mean the impact of CC on OP. What does this moderator means? This means the impact of role ambiguity on OP. So it's all about the impact of IV on DV, moderator on DV, and interaction on DV. So interaction is role ambiguity into CC on OP. So where are these results? If I go back here to path coefficients in the bootstrapping results. Okay, the path coefficient. So the impact of IV on DV 0.532. Here is CC on OP 0.532. The moderator, the impact of moderator on DV minus 0.195, minus 0.195. And what about the interaction effect? That is your moderating effect, minus 0.147. Minus 0.147. Now, if you look here, which one is steeper? Low role ambiguity is much steeper in comparison to high role ambiguity. So at low role ambiguity, if you increase your collaborative culture, your organizational performance is looking more sharper increase. So when your role ambiguity is low and you increase, just ignore the red line. Just look at this blue line here. So as I see it, the line that is blue is much steeper as compared to the red line. Now, in comparison to the other graph that we had here, so low was much steeper. Is that the case here? Yes, low is much steeper. So ignore the red line. For example, forget this red line for now. All right. Okay, I cannot delete it. So what happens when you have low role ambiguity? What happens to the relationship of collaborative culture and OP? This is what we have to understand in case of moderation. So when you're trying to make sense of this slope or the graph, because this is one thing that is at times very difficult to understand or interpret. So what you need to do is first understand that, okay, this is my low role ambiguity. All right. And at low role ambiguity, what happens to the relationship between CC and OP? So at low role ambiguity, when you increase CC, there is a sharp increase in OP. Now compare this with high RA. So when you have got high level of role ambiguity, although you are increasing collaborative culture, is it leading to a sharper increase in OP? No, it is not. So in comparison to both low RA and high RA, the relationship between CC and OP is changing. This means that RA moderates the relationship between CC and OP. This means in this case, since it's a negative interaction effect, role ambiguity dampens the positive relationship between CC and OP. Why positive? Because look at this, the beta is positive here. Clear? Now, before I move on, let me take any questions if you have. Any questions with regards to moderation?
So,
Yes, please.
is there a possibility that you can have a mediator and moderator both in a single study?
Yes. Yes. Are you saying that the same variable working as a mediator and same variable as a moderator?
Yeah, can I test it like that?
Well, I think you can, but then what's the then it will then if let's say if role ambiguity is both my mediator and moderator, and you send me this paper as a reviewer, I will send it back to you and reject it.
Yeah.
And now you might ask why.
Why?
Ask why? Yeah. The reason is because I think the author of the paper is confused. He does not know conceptually where his variable or her variables stand. Now, what the possibility is that what you can do is you can test both. Since you are developing your framework, you can say, well, some studies have taken it as a mediator while other studies have taken it as a moderator. I want to end this debate and discuss whether it is better as a mediator or better as a moderator. And then you present two separate analyses and compare the results. Okay. Yes, we can check multiple moderators. You can have any number of moderators you want. But again, the graphs will be separate for each one of them. Okay. Yes, please. Another question. Okay. Now, how do we report the moderation analysis results? So, let me open. So first thing, you write what moderation analysis was performed. All right. Step 2, results. What are the results? Step 3, impact of IV on DV without the moderating effect and compared to the moderating effect. So although you can skip number 3, but if you report it, it's better. Now what happens in step number 3 is that you assess the impact of IV on DV without the moderating effect, and this is referred to as effect size of the moderator. Now how to do this, let's have a look here. So moderation analysis was performed to assess the moderating role of conflict on the study proposed that. Now this is a description of what moderation analysis you are trying to perform. All right. Now once this is done, you go to your step 2, moderation analysis results. Okay, now what just to do? Step 4, slope analysis if interaction is significant. So again, mention the beta value, mention the t value, mention the p value. All of them are there in the table. What does the slope tell us? Let's have a look at the slope. Okay. RA dampens the positive relationship. So RA dampens the positive relationship between collaborative culture and organizational performance. Now, so there is one more thing here that you can do. Open report and you look at F square. And this is the effect size. So look at the effect size here. Normally, if it is between less than 0.02, it's very weak or weak. Greater than 2 and between 0.15, you can say it's mediocre effect size, and greater than 0.15, it is higher. Now, I've got a slide, I'll share it later on this effect size. So in this case, you can say it's a moderate effect. The interaction is having a moderate effect on the DV. Now, what you can say is that the effect size statistic F square showed an effect size of 0.032. This shows that interaction has a moderate effect on the outcome, that is your organizational performance. That's it. Now, there is one more thing that you can do. The results further revealed that without the interaction effect, the R square was, so what was the R square without the interaction effect? Let's see. Go back. Okay. Let me delete it here. Let me calculate. TLS algorithm. Start. So it's 0.356. 0.356. And what about with the interaction effect? So calculate TLS algorithm. Start. 0.408. So there is quite some change. 0.408. However, with the inclusion of the interaction effect, the R square significantly improved to this. All right. This shows that the interaction effect was okay. Rather than we cannot not do it, let's say, because we've already reported the F square here. So this is how you can report what happens to your data or your model without the moderating effect and with the moderating effect. So the higher the change in R square, the higher is your moderating effect. In this case, let's say you put it after this and it will make more sense. F square. This is how. So this is a moderated effect. All right. There's a moderate effect on outcome. Now I'll share a slide where I mentioned the whole reference for this moderate effect as well. All right. So you can have that. And it's, I guess, by Chin et al. 1998 or Chin 1998, something like that. All right. So you will have a reference. I'll share it later. Now, once step 3 is done, you perform your slope analysis if your interaction effect is significant. If your moderation is significant, you go for your slope analysis. Now, further to the significance of interaction effect, slope analysis was performed to better understand the impact of role ambiguity or role conflict. I forgot. Role ambiguity. Role ambiguity in the, or rather on the relationship between collaborative culture and organizational performance. Now, where is the slope? Here is the slope. Copy it and paste it here. Now let's interpret it. The slope analysis, figure 1, let's say, revealed that at low so the slope reveals that at low RA, if the collaborative culture is improved, this leads to a sharper change in organizational performance. Now, what's the other side? However, at higher role ability, with the increase in collaborative culture, there is not a similar change in OP as compared to low RA. So this is how you can report your slope. And then again, just remove these steps and you will have your hypothesis reported for moderation. Now, any questions before we move on?
So, if my moderator effect is significant and I'm not doing this further analysis because of word count or something, will it be accepted?
It depends on the reviewer, but reviewer will recommend to have this slope, because you see every good paper published, you will always see if the moderation is significant, you will see such slopes because they make the understanding the whole thing easier. And as for word count, you can always cut down some words in the literature review, try to use like concise them through maybe even AI tools, but it's always recommended to have the slope.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Now, this was all about up until now. What we have done is we've done more or less simple models whereby we had variables and we assessed their interrelationship through mediation, moderation, or direct relationship. And before that, we assessed the measurement model that involved assessment of their factor loadings, their reliability, and validity. Now, this is not always the case. Now, before I move on, there's one thing that I would like to discuss here. So CCOP is RA. So let me come back here. Now, let's say this is my model and I'm interested in this relationship here, let's say. Now, let's say this is my proposed model and role ambiguity and role conflict are moderating the relationship between CC and OP. Now, my first question is, this is my proposed model. So how will I run the measurement model? Will I just go on and calculate PLS SCM algorithm, start. Now here is my measurement model. Here is my construct reliability and validity. All good. Here is my discriminant validity. But look at this. Why is my interaction effect being tested for reliability and validity? This is not a measure. This is something calculated. So when you have moderators in your study, remember to run measurement model without the interaction effect. So if I was to run my model, and this is my model, so and I'm interested in running the measurement model, my measurement model will look like this. So RC and RA are moderating this relationship. So what I'll do is I'll simply connect my moderators here. Yes. So you will connect your moderators to the DV of the relationship that it is moderating. So RC and RA are moderating this relationship between CC and OP. So I will connect RC and RA to the DV of the relationship that is OP. Now I will run my measurement model. Now once I'm done with my measurement model, all reliabilities and all this, I will now this is, let's say I will create a duplicate of it. So I will create a duplicate of it, and this is my duplicate. And now I will link this RC and create my structural relationship. Now that I'm done with the measurement model, now I will have this moderating effect like this. So remember, if you've got moderating variables as part of your measurement model, just link them directly to the variable or the variable, the relationship that it moderates, to the DV of the relationship that it moderates. Then duplicate that model and create your structural model just the way I have done. Now create this and remove the direct relationship because that direct relationship is automatically inherent in there. It's directly there. So do not just directly link it. Now what I'll do is I'll go to calculate, bootstrapping, and this is my complete model for now. All right, 10,000. This one tailed, all good. Start. Okay, now if there are more than one DV, so how will the moderation and mediation will be done? We'll have a look at an example. Just hold on. Now here is your structural model, and what I'll do is, okay, let's go back. Let me do one thing first. What happened? Oh, okay, even if you have got multiple DVs, you have to see which relationship is it affecting. So your moderator, which variable is or which relationship is it affecting? It will moderate that relationship. If you even if you've got multiple DVs, you have to see which relationship is it mediating. I'll do example for you as well. Okay, let's look at path coefficients. Well, yes. Okay, now here are your results. And this moderation, you can say it is partially significant. This one is significant. And these are your other relationships. Now, once you've done the measurement model, this is your structural model, and these are the possible relationships that you have in your model, and this is how you report them. And I've already given you the examples to report them. Now, let's assume, as I was asked, let's assume I've got multiple DVs. All right. So let's say I've got one more DV here. That is responsiveness. And what I'm going to do is, since I've got multiple DVs and each of my IV is linked to the DV, my mediators are linked to my DV as well. That's it. Now I've got 3 IVs, I've got 2 mediators, I've got 2 DVs, and I've got 2 moderators moderating this relationship here. Now, if I want to run this as a measurement model, obviously I'll remove these links and just directly link it to the OP. That's it. And now let's say I've run my measurement model, I've checked the loadings, checked the reliability, checked the validity, all those things are done. Now I'm running the structural model. And this is a complex model. So go to calculate, structural model, so bootstrapping. All good, let's start. When you have a complex model with multiple variables and moderator as well, it does take some time. Okay. Now look at this. There is something that I want to show you, specific indirect effects. Now, how many specific indirect effects you have? Now you have to see which one is applicable to your analytical scope. There might be some mediation analysis that is not required by you. For example, let me give you another option here. Let's look at this one. If I connect the organizational culture to, or organizational commitment to collaborative culture, or rather it should be the other way around theoretically, I guess. Here it is. Now look at the results now. I'm sorry, it's going to take another minute now. Now here are the results, and look at the specific indirect effects. How many are there? Let me copy them to Excel. Here they are. So you've got 1, 2, up until 18 mediation analysis, but you are the one who knows which one do you want and which one you don't want. Is this what I want? No, I don't have any one where I'm assessing the 2 mediators. So why is it that Smart PLS is giving me these 2? Because if you go to your output, what's happening is vision, or rather, let's do it like this. So vision is affecting. Okay, one more thing. Anyways, let's do rewards. Rewards affect CC, then CC affects OC, then OC affects OP. So this is one mediation path with 2 mediators. So you actually made those relationships. That's why you're getting those in the results. But is it something that I'm interested in? No. So I will report only those that we assess the relationship between 2 DVs as well. Well, if you want to, if it is it is part of your theoretical framework, if it is something that you have proposed, sure you can, why not? If it is not, then you don't need to. So all this is based on your conceptual and analytical scope. I'm not interested in this kind of serial mediation. So this won't be part of my results. I'll simply delete them. I'll simply delete this as well. And I'll delete all others that are not part of my final analysis, or that I don't want to be part of my final analysis. I hope this is clear now. Can we have a hypothesis that moderator affects DV? Direct effect? Yes, and it is a mediator. So I don't understand the question. Can we have a hypothesis that moderator affects the DV? Okay. And it is a mediator. Now this is not clear how, and I earlier answered this as well, that in a same study, if you are taking the same variable as both mediator and moderator, Yes, you can have. Yes, you can have a direct hypothesis as well, whereby the moderator is not just the moderator, but affecting that DV as well. Yes, you can have it. No issues. Now, okay. Anyone else who's got any question? Clear? Okay. Now, let me change this and make it. Now, this was a model whereby we had one construct and those constructs had items. So we had a latent variable vision. Why latent? Because it is unobserved. Why unobserved? Because it is not observed directly. It is observed through these items. So all of them are latent variable, or all of these are latent variable that are not observed directly, but rather indirectly through some other items. But here there is latent variable and then you've got items. There is this latent variable and then it has got items. There is this latent variable and then it has got items. And this is a simple model with this first order constructs. Now, what is a first order construct? In simple terms, when you have a latent variable, unobserved latent variable, and it is directly measured using some of the items. Now, it is first order. But there are times when there are higher order constructs as well. There are complex constructs. These are higher order constructs that are latent, but then they have got sub dimensions as well, or they have got lower order constructs as well. For example, we all have heard about the concept of corporate social responsibility. Now, corporate social responsibility, let me give you an example. So corporate social responsibility is a concept and it is normally, or it has four characteristics or four traits, or what makes corporate social responsibility is the economic dimension, then there is legal dimension, then there is ethical dimension, and then there is a philanthropic dimension. So corporate social responsibility is made up of these four dimensions, and each dimensions can have different items to measure that dimension. So in this case, these are your lower order constructs, and these lower order constructs actually make up your higher order construct. This is called hierarchical component modeling. Now again, there is, let's say in this case, in this example, I've got vision, then I've got development, then I've got rewards. Now these three are actually the sub-dimensions of a concept called internal marketing by Foreman and Money 1995. And they've got three dimensions: vision, development, and rewards. So these are the sub-dimensions of a higher order concept. Now, let's say when you are searching for your questionnaire, you might end up having a questionnaire that has or that measures the concept based on sub-dimensions. So your concept is actually a higher order construct, and this can happen. Now, when this happens, the analysis slightly changes. So you do not just put it in, you do your measurement model and do your structural model and howsoever you want to put it. No, that doesn't work like that. It changes. But before we go on and understand this, how to analyze the higher order constructs, or what different types of higher order constructs exist, there is something that we need to discuss. Now, if you look here, all these latent constructs, if you see, the arrows are pointing towards the items. The arrows are pointing towards the items in this case. So the arrows are from the latent variable, latent construct, and they point towards the items. Now this is called a reflective lower order construct. This is called a reflective lower order construct. Now, in comparison to this reflective lower order construct, we can have formative lower order constructs as well, or even reflective higher order construct or formative higher order construct as well. So what is this difference between reflective and formative lower order constructs? Or what is the difference between reflective and formative constructs? So let me first open so the slides are visible, right? Anyone can type it in and just say yes, they are visible. Yes, okay, good. Now, formative constructs. Now, formative versus reflective higher order constructs, or just formative or reflective constructs. Now, look at this one here. The arrows are pointing towards the items. Now, this is a reflective construct. All right, this is a reflective construct. Now, the relationship between the indicators and the underlying construct can be formative or reflective. So, the arrows can point towards the items, that is reflective, or the arrows can point from the items to the blue circle, and that will be called formative. So when the arrows are pointing towards these yellow circles, it is called reflective. And when the arrows are pointing towards the blue circle from these yellow rectangles, then it is called formative. Now, latent variables are assessed by observable measures, that is indicators. So we assess the latent variables, as I explained earlier, through indicators, the items that we collect based on our search of the questionnaire. The measurement model describes the relationship between these manifest indicators, items, and the latent construct. Now, the objective of measurement model is how well these items are representing the latent construct, how well these items are measuring the latent construct. Now, measurement model can be reflective or it can be formative in nature. In reflective models, the indicators are affected by the latent variable. So the arrow is pointing towards the items. In the formative model, the indicators define the latent variable. That is, they form the latent variable. So the arrow is pointing from the items to the latent variable. The difference we'll explain in detail. Wait, the examples are coming and they will clarify all this. Now, this is very important. When you have reflective indicators in a model or reflective construct, the items, the indicators, the statements are interchangeable. By interchangeable, I mean they cover for each other. Since the concept is reflected in the different indicators, they share a common theme so that items are interchangeable. They can take each other's place. For example, let me give you an example. So we all have heard about the concept of organizational commitment. So if I ask you these 3 or 4 questions that measures the organizational commitment, first is, I love my job. The second is, I believe in the objectives of my organization. The third is, I love going to work. The fourth is that I am not looking for a job. The fifth is, I I'm attached to my organization. Now, if now see this concept of I attach myself to the organization and I believe in my organization. These two statements, although different, are interchangeable. One can cover for the other one. So in reflective indicators or reflective measures, the items are interchangeable. They can cover for each other because they are sharing a common theme. That is not the case for formative indicators, and I'll tell you how. Formative indicators are not interchangeable because each indicator contributes a specific meaning to the latent variable. Since these items are coming together to form the latent variable, each item has got its own value, its own space, its own meaning that it is contributing to the latent variable. So they are not interchangeable. So when you've got formative indicators, it's not easy to delete them because they each contribute to the latent variable. All right. In case of formative model, it is the other way around. A change in the indicators results in a change in the construct. So if a variable or item changes, it brings about a change in your latent variable because the arrows are pointing from the indicators to the latent variable. Now, in the reflective model, the latent construct exists in an absolute sense. It is completely latent. It is completely unobservable. It in itself does not have any meaning. Its meaning is provided by the items. Since the indicators are used interchangeably, even with the deletion of one of the indicators, the latent variable will still exist. This is mean that it is completely latent, unobserved in its absolute sense. The latent variable itself is not wiped out if you delete one of the indicators. How? We'll see in the example. Practically all scales in business and related methodological texts are reflective. Now, more or less, the lower order constructs that you have in your studies are 99.99% of the times they are reflective. Obviously, they can be formative as well at times. So let me change the percentage. Most of the times, 90% of the times or 85% of the times. In contrast, formative model, the latent construct is dependent on the constructivist or operationalist or instrumentalist interpretation. How and what makes this latent variable? What and how the items combine to form the latent variable. It's how you interpret, how you operationalize the concept. It's what that matters. For example, now again, a very clear example of Human Development Index. Human Development Index does not exist as an independent entity. Rather, it is a composite measure of human development that includes health, education, and income. So if you have health, education, and income, they combine to form the Human Development Index. So it is a formative indicator or formative construct. It is not reflective. Why? Because health cannot cover for education. Education as a measure cannot cover for income. So you cannot say that the Human Development Index of, let's say, India or Pakistan is very good because they have got good health and education. They have to have income as well. You cannot say that it's good because they have got education and income. You have to have health as well. You cannot say that India and Pakistan have good HDI because they have good health and income, but you have to have education as well. But in case of commitment, if you remember my example, even if you ask 2 questions out of those 4 questions, still those 2 questions can cover for the organizational commitment. Again, BMI, if you know, I don't know what makes, like it's age, weight and height, or maybe it's something else. But again, those 3 will make up BMI. Even if you remove one of it, it's no longer BMI. Any change in one or more of these components is likely to cause a change in a country's HDI score. In contrast to reflective model, a few examples of formative models are seen in business literature. Now, formative model is quite low in business literature, but at lower order level. At higher order level, there are quite a few now. A reflective measurement theory is based on the idea that latent constructs cause the measured variables, and the error results in the inability to fully explain these measures. So here the arrow is from the latent variable, that is the blue circle, to the items. So that is what caused, because it's the latent variable is causing the items. So those items are dependent on the concept of latent variable for their existence. And I gave you the commitment example earlier. Here, commitment can be expressed in three ways. Even if one does not tell friends and show willingness to buy brand X at higher price, there is still commitment. So let's say customer commitment is believed to cause specific measured indicators like willingness to obtain brand X, telling friends about it, and continuing to buy brand X. Now, even if you do not have the first two and only the last two, this is still will be called commitment. But in HDI, even if you remove one of it, then it's no longer HDI. That is what makes reflective indicators interchangeable and formative not interchangeable. Now, in contrast to formative, obviously the variables, they cause the construct and you cannot interchange them or remove one and then say that, okay, the construct still exists. That's not possible. Again, there is social class index, and that is based on education, occupation, and income. Even if you remove one of them, there is no social class index. And the same thing I have repeated. Now, here it is. Again, look at the arrows pointing in both cases. One is reflective, the other is formative. The one on the left is reflective because the arrow is pointing from CSR to the items and they share a common theme. And on the right side, it is formative because these combine to make up the CSR or the concept of CSR. Now, reflective versus formative. Well, it depends on how you conceptualize SCI. Mediator or moderator is not fixed. It's how you conceptualize that particular variable in a relationship. A variable can be both mediator and moderator. Let me give you an example. So if you've got good human resource in an organization, that can lead to better culture in an organization. And when you have got better culture in an organization, you've got better organizational performance. In this case, your culture is your mediator, because human resource is causing improved culture, and that improved culture is leading to better organizational performance. But let me change my interpretation, let me change my understanding, let me change how I'm presenting it. So if you have better organizational culture in an organization, this can strengthen the impact of human resource management on organizational performance. Now the same mediator is becoming a moderator. So you have to see how you have conceptualized it and what relationship you are assessing it in. SCI by itself can be mediator or moderator, but it depends on which relationship it is, like in what relationship it is in. I hope this answers the question. Okay, now diet can be reflective. Why reflective? I eat healthy food. I do not eat much junk food. So if somebody is not eating much of the junk food, then obviously they are eating healthy food. Now, if they are not eating healthy, they are eating healthy food, or rather, if they are having a balanced diet, this means that they are eating healthy food. So one item can cover up for the other. So this makes it reflective. Look at the other one. You cannot replace one with other. So I have a balanced diet. It cannot cover for exercise. So I have a balanced diet, but I'm not exercising. I get sufficient sleep, but I'm not exercising. So one cannot cover for other. This is formative. Moving on. Okay, now this is the concept of reflective and formative higher order construct. Now, how do you analyze it? How they are used with the higher order construct? We'll start on this from tomorrow.